Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review, an out-of-date Dynamite review. This is going to be a review of the November 4th edition of Dynamite, of course from the Daily's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. And Dynamite this week was the go-home show for Full Gear, which is happening tomorrow. And of course it's Friday, so you guys are going to be getting two uploads from me today, two reviews. Of course, the Dynamite review, and of course later on tonight, the SmackDown review. But like I said, Dynamite was the go-home show for Full Gear, which is happening tomorrow night, which I will be reviewing. I will be reviewing Full Gear tomorrow. So it's shaping up to be a good show, as a good card. And looking forward to a lot of the matches on this card. But I didn't review Dynamite last week. I said I was going to give my thoughts on last week's edition of Dynamite. So I thought last week's Dynamite was a solid show. We had two of the matches in the AEW Championship Eliminator Tournament, where we saw Warlow take on Hangman Page, and Kenny Omega end up taking on Penta El Zero Miedo. And last week's Dynamite kicked off with Warlow versus Hangman and Page, which was a good match, a very back and forth match between Warlow and Page. Hangman and Page end up defeating Warlow with the buckshot lariat, so Hangman and Page ends up moving on to the semifinals at Full Gear. And then, of course, we had Matt Sydal end up taking on Eddie Kingston, which Eddie Kingston was out there along with the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny. Eddie Kingston, of course, won the match, and he ended up locking in the Bulldog choke, which Jon Moxley ends up using, and he was screaming out, "Jon Moxley, quit!" Of course, him and Moxley are going to meet tomorrow night in a I Quit match. So I'm looking forward to that match tomorrow night, and the AEW World Championship is going to be on the line. And also, we saw the MJF Chris Jericho town hall meeting, which was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool segment. We had Luchasaurus there. Britt Baker ended up asking a question, and we also saw Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff ended up returning. Last we saw Eric Bischoff in AEW was when he was constructing the debate against Jericho and Orange Cassidy. So it was cool to see Eric Bischoff, there once again. But I enjoyed it. Then we had Cody versus Orange Cassidy, TNT Championship match. It was a lumberjack match, which was pretty decent. Of course, Cody ended up picking up the win. Crossroads on Orange Cassidy. And then Cody's going to be taking on Darby Allin tomorrow night at Full Gear. TNT Championship on the line. Going to be a good match between the both of them. So, and also Cody ended up getting the Rhodes last name back. Of course, WWE ended up dropping the trademark Rhodes, so Cody ended up getting back the Rhodes last name, which was awesome. So now he's going to go by, of course, Cody Rhodes. And you also had last week's Dynamite, the main event, Penta El Zero Miedo take on Kenny Omega in the AEW Championship Eliminator Tournament match, which was a very good main event between these guys. Kenny Omega ended up winning the match, ended up delivering the one-winged angel on Penta El Zero Miedo. So Kenny Omega ends up advancing to the finals at Full Gear. He's going to be taking on, of course, Hangman Adam Page. So that's going to be a awesome match right there. So, but Dynamite for last week, thought it was a solid show. So that's my thoughts on last week's Dynamite. Considering I didn't do a review last week because I was, busy and life got in the way. So, but solid show for Dynamite last week. So moving on to Dynamite from this week, from this past Wednesday. I thought this was a good show for a go-home show to Full Gear. And we saw MJF and Warlow take on Sammy Guevara and Ortiz. And we also saw Miro in action. Miro ended up taking on Trent from The Best Friends. Young Bucks ended up taking on Private Party. And in the main event, we saw Cody, Billy, and Austin Gunn versus John Silver, 10, and Colt Cabana in a 6-man tag. But overall, Dynamite was a good show. It was a good go-home show to Full Gear, in my opinion. But let's get started with the Dynamite review. So Dynamite kicked off this week with Dasha in the back. She was there alongside Jericho, Hager, and Santana. And we also had MJF end up coming up. And Jericho was on commentary through the night, which was awesome. Always good to hear Jericho on commentary. He brings, energy to the commentary table alongside Tony Schiavone and JR and Excalibur, in my opinion. Just makes commentary a whole lot better. So MJF ended up walking up. Jericho and MJF were bickering. Jericho ended up calling MJF soft. And there's the reason why Jericho ended up calling MJF soft is because Jericho thinks MJF is soft, thinking that he would fit in the inner circle. So basically that was that. Then we had the first match, MJF and Warlow versus Sammy Guevara and Ortiz, which was a decent match. And this match was made last week during the town hall meeting. So we had Warlow and Ortiz starting off the match. Warlow ended up taking down Ortiz. MJF ended up getting in. And there was a point in the match where MJF was shown biting Ortiz, which was crazy. And then Jericho was like, oh, he's biting him. He's biting him. So Warlow ended up coming back in. And Warlow ended up keeping control of Ortiz. And Guevara ended up getting into the match. He took down both MJF and Warlow. Took them both out to the floor. Sammy ended up delivering a suicide dive on MJF. And he did a flip on Wardlow. And towards the end of the match, you had MJF end up locking in the Fujiwara armbar on Ortiz. Ortiz ended up tapping out. So there you go. MJF and Warlow ended up winning the match. Oh, and there was also a part where Sammy Guevara was on the outside. He was talking trash to Serpentico. But it was actually Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy threw a chair at Sammy, and he took off the mask, and it was revealed to be Matt Hardy. So Matt Hardy ended up running off. So just had to mention that little part that happened during the match. But overall, it was a decent match between MJF, Warlow, Guevara, and Ortiz. Post-match, you had MJF end up heading up the stage, and he ended up charging at Jericho on commentary. So we saw Jericho and MJF throwing punches at each other. And we had Santana and Jake Hager end up pulling MJF off of Jericho. And Jericho was shown smiling as, he got back up. So that was that. So overall, decent match between MJF, Warlow, Guevara, and Ortiz. And then we went to Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was visiting Kenny Omega, interviewing Kenny Omega at his home, which Omega ended up saying that it's not actually his home. Omega ended up telling Tony Schiavone that he just relocated temporarily to focus on the tournament. So Kenny Omega ended up saying to Tony Schiavone that twice he had his matches changed in the tournament, and his game plans had to be switched up. And Omega ended up offering the idea that, maybe Tony Khan should have given him 2 buys with the changes that were made. And Omega ended up saying that he didn't think it was obvious that Hangman and Page would make it to the finals. And he ended up saying that he thought Warlow would be the one to get there. So Omega ended up asking Tony Schiavone who'd he bet on for the tournament. He ended up saying that he thinks he's destined to win the tournament and become the AEW World Champion. It was a pretty good interview with Kenny Omega, with Tony Schiavone. And then we had Trent versus Nero, which was solid. Before the match, Miro ended up getting the mic, and he ended up talking trash to Trent. He ended up mentioning about how Trent is not learning any manners from his mother. And then Trent went right at Miro, ended up dropping Miro with the drop kick. And Trent ended up getting up to the second rope. And that's when the match started, when Trent ended up hitting the drop kick to Miro. So Trent ended up getting up to the second rope. And Trent ended up grabbing Miro, ended up hitting Miro with a suplex. And Miro got back up, and he ended up hitting a kick to Trent's back, ended up hitting a uppercut. Miro ended up delivering a suplex and an elbow to Trent's face. And we had Chuck Taylor, and Kip Sabian fighting on the outside. And they end up going up to the back. And Penelope Ford ended up trying to follow them, but Orange Cassidy got in her way. Miro ended up sending Trent into the corner. And we had Trent end up trying to go for a tornado DDT, but Miro ended up moving out of the way. Miro then ended up sending Trent into the ring post. And there was a point where Dynamite was at commercial. You know how they do the picture-in-picture? We saw Penelope Ford slap Orange Cassidy. So Orange Cassidy then took the shades off of Penelope Ford's head, and he put them on. And then John Silver of the Dark Order ended up attacking Orange Cassidy from behind. We had the whole Dark Order come out and beat down on Orange Cassidy. And of course, Cassidy and John Silver are going to be meeting at Full Gear tomorrow. They'll be having a match. So the referee ended up tossing the Dark Order to go to the back, and Miro even got involved. Miro came out, and he ended up telling telling the Dark Order to get out of here. So, and then all the Dark Order were freaked out at Miro. But Orange Cassidy was out cold. Out cold there. So at the end of the match, Miro then ended up locking in the game over on Trent. Trent ended up tapping out, so there you go. Miro ended up picking up the win. Post-match, Miro was still had the game over locked in on Trent. Chuck Taylor, Chucky T, ended up returning, and he ended up fighting Miro. Kip Sabian then came back out and got involved, and the Best Friends were taken out. So Miro got on the mic. He ended up saying that Trent has no manners because of his mother. So then Orange Cassidy was shown on the top rope. Cassidy leapt off the top rope, took out Miro and Kip Sabian, and that pissed off Miro. Miro ended up throwing the mic, which was funny. And that was that. So solid match between Trent and Miro. And then we went to Jim Ross. JR talked with Hangman Adam Page, interviewing him. Of course, Page ended up having a drink in his hand. JR ended up asking Page about his finals match against Kenny Omega at Full Gear. Page ended up saying that he feels so good and has time to prepare. Page ended up saying that he knew it was going to be Kenny Omega, but he's going to win. So JR ended up asking about them being, former partners and how the strategy works for Page. So Page ended up saying that he knows all of Kenny Omega's moves and that he will be able to pull out the victory. So JR ended up saying to Page that he must think that Page is nervous. So Page ended up admitting to JR that he is nervous. Page is actually nervous. And he says, who doesn't get nerves going down the tunnel? So Page ended up mentioning how he originally said he was going to be the first world champion in AEW. And that it didn't work out. He ended up saying that if he doesn't win this opportunity, what else does he have? So JR ended up reminding Page about moderation. And so JR ended up wishing Page good luck at Full Gear. So that was that. But it was a decent interview with JR and Page. And so then we had, predictions. It was like a hype video for the FTR and Young Bucks match that we're going to be seeing at Full Gear, which is going to be match of the year tomorrow night. I'm calling it now. That is probably going to be the main event, and I hope it is. But that's going to be a great, awesome match between FTR and the Young Bucks. Everyone wanted it to happen. Everybody said, it was going to be a dream match. It's going to be a dream match between FTR and the Young Bucks. We want to see it, and we're finally getting it tomorrow night. Absolutely looking forward to it. So there was some of the talent making their predictions on who's going to win the match. And Matt Jackson ended up reiterating that if the Bucks don't win, the Bucks will never challenge for the tag titles ever again. So that was that. But it's going to be an awesome match. It's the match that us fans have been waiting for. And it's going to deliver. It's going to absolutely deliver tomorrow night. So I can't wait to see it. So then we had Taz's crew, him and Brian Cage and Ricky Starks head out to the stage. Taz ended up reminding Will Hobbs that time is ticking down for Hobbs to make his decision about joining his group, about joining Taz's group alongside Cage and Starks. So all three guys get in the ring. Taz ended up saying that for 3 hours, he sat outside Tony Khan's office trying to get 2 minutes of his time. So Taz ended up saying that a production assistant told him that Tony Khan was too busy. So Taz ended up saying that he'll talk on Tony Khan's TV show, of course, which is, of course, Dynamite, that if he can't talk backstage with Tony Khan. So Taz was ranting how Brian Cage is 10-1, meaning that the loss to Moxley didn't count, and that Cage is number 1 in the rankings. Taz went on to say that Ricky Starks has only 1 match in AEW, and that he isn't in the top 5 rankings. So Ricky Starks ended up getting on the mic, and he ended up saying that he opened and closed Dynamite, and that every time he's given a shot, he hits a home run. Starks ended up wondering how they don't have a match at the pay-per-view, how him and Cage doesn't have a match. So Taz ended up saying that Cody and Darby Allin would be a good match, but they are also both spoiled and entitled, and guarantees an FTW presence at Full Gear. So, and that was that. But it was a awesome, good segment with Taz. Anytime, I always say it, every time Taz comes out and gets on the mic, you always have to listen to what he has to say because he still knows how to deliver a good promo. So I think there's going to be some things happening after Cody and Darby's match. FTW, Taz, and Brian Cage and Ricky Starks are going to be present after the match. So that's my prediction for tomorrow. So then we had the Young Bucks versus Private Party, and this was a entertaining match. Private Party ended up coming out along with Matt Hardy. So Matt Hardy was out there, and we saw Sammy Guevara end up coming out, and he ended up attacking Matt Hardy from behind and took out Matt Hardy. And we hear Jericho on commentary be like, "Yeah, Sammy! Yeah, Sammy!" So Private Party was trying to get to Guevara, but Guevara ended up running away. And that's when the match ended up getting underway. And Nick and Mark Quinn ended up starting off the match. Nick ended up bringing Mark Quinn down with a arm drag. We had Isaiah Cassidy come in. He was doing kicks and a double stomp to Nick's head. And at the end of the match, you had the Young Bucks end up winning. Mark Quinn end up getting a super kick delivered by Nick Jackson, and end up hitting the BTE trigger. And that was that. The Young Bucks end up winning the match. Post-match, FTR end up coming out. They end up attacking Matt and Nick from behind. They end up hitting the Goodnight Express to Matt Jackson. Cash Wheeler was looking to put a chair around Matt's ankle again. And Dax Harwood ended up holding Nick down. Wheeler ended up heading up to the second rope to stomp down on the chair. And so Hangman and Page end up coming out with a drink in his hand, and he chases FTR away. They end up getting out of the ring. Kenny Omega end up coming out. he was in the ring to check on Matt and Nick. And Hangman and Page ended up taking the chair, tosses it out to the floor. Page and Omega end up staring at FTR. And Omega ended up putting his fist out to Page. Page ended up bumping it. So then Kenny Omega then ended up going back to FTR. Page ended up returning, and he ended up saying some things to Kenny Omega, and he had a serious look on his face. And nothing really happened between Kenny Omega and Hangman and Page here. I thought they were going to be throwing punches, taking out each other, and nothing happened. So I thought there was going to be a fight between Omega and Page here. But we're going to have to wait until tomorrow night to see the match between the both of them. So that was that. So then we had Tony Schiavone. He was in the ring. He was going to do a face-to-face with Moxley and Eddie Kingston. And it was announced that neither Moxley or Eddie Kingston can get physical with each other. So Eddie Kingston came out first, and he was like to Tony Schiavone, "Hold that mic up, do your job, hold that mic up." And so Kingston was talking about Moxley. Moxley ended up making his way out. And as soon as Moxley got into the ring, Eddie Kingston ended up kicking Tony Schiavone out of the ring. And he ended up getting on the mic. Kingston got in Moxley's face. And he ended up telling Moxley that he's going to destroy him. And they were both face to face. I mean, Kingston was, had his face up to Moxley. And he was telling Moxley that he's going to destroy him. And that he's going to take the AEW World Championship. And he's going to give it to his mom and tell her that this is the reason she doesn't have a grandson. So Kingston ended up saying that he had to sell out and become everything he hated to get a shot at the title. And he said he plans on taking the title from Moxley at Full Gear. Moxley ended up getting on the mic and he ended up saying that loyalty is a bitch. And that he's gotten burned time and time again. He ended up saying that he was so happy when Kingston signed, which Kingston replied that he wasn't happy. So Moxley ended up saying that he was happy for Kingston's mom, which Kingston ended up saying that he doesn't like Moxley talking about his mother. Moxley went on to say that he's found the loudest guys typically is the weakest. And Kingston was shown laughing, and he ended up saying that he's going to gut Moxley. So Moxley ended up saying that at Full Gear, Kingston is going to face the best in the world, and that Kingston is going to lose. And Moxley ended up saying that after 18 years, Kingston may learn he didn't deserve the shot at all. So Moxley ended up saying that Kingston made a promise to his mother that he can't keep. So Kingston was telling Moxley, "Oh, you better get ready to kill me. You better get ready to kill me." So Kingston ended up saying that Moxley isn't going to do it, and that the title is his. So Kingston ended up leaving the ring. Moxley ended up saying that Kingston is not the man he thought he was, and that Kingston will be saying the words, "I quit," at Full Gear. And that was how the segment ended, but really good segment here. Really enjoyed the intense from Eddie Kingston and Moxley here. Eddie Kingston being, really intense. Looking forward to going to his match with Moxley in the I Quit match. Just every time when Kingston gets on the mic, and I said it before, you got to listen to what the man says. The man is that good on the mic. But very intense segment. Really enjoyed it. And then we had a video from Pac. Pac hasn't been shown in months. Pac was shown sitting in his home. He was alone. He was shown standing at the beach. And Pac ended up saying that it's been 7 months. 7 months he's been out of action. And that he's become a casualty of this world. He said it's okay though. He's been through this before. He ended up saying that every day that passes, he gets strong, faster, and more obsessed. He ended up going on to say that he's seen everything. So that was the video with Pac, but really am enjoying seeing Pac's return whenever he comes back. Hope he comes back soon. So then we had Nyla Rose versus Red Velvet, which was a short match. We had Nyla Rose end up hitting a running knee to Red Velvet, went for the cover. There you go, Nyla Rose ended up winning. And before she ended up hitting the running knee, Nyla Rose ended up looking at her Hikaru Shida, which, Nyla Rose is going to be taking on Hikaru Shida tomorrow night at Full Gear, and the AEW Women's World Championship is going to be on the line. And then you had post-match, you had Vicky Guerrero gets on the mic. She ended up making fun of Red Velvet for not winning the match against Nyla Rose, even with Brandy Rhodes by her, because Brandy Rhodes was beside Red Velvet. Vicky ended up saying that Brandy should go by a new title. And that new title is called CBSO, which Vicky Guerrero described it as Chief Bullshit Officer. So Vicky ended up saying that Tony Khan made Hikaru Shida take the match against Nyla Rose and to enjoy her last 3 days as champion. So Vicky Guerrero ended up saying something to Hikaru Shida in Japanese. Shida ended up grabbing Vicky Guerrero. Nyla Rose ends up coming over, and her and Hikaru Shida start punching each other, and they end up getting separated. So that was that. So the two of them are going to meet tomorrow night at Full Gear with the AEW Women's World Championship on the line. And they announced that for next week's Dynamite, we're going to be seeing Rey Fenix versus Penta El Zia Miro once again. So that's going to be a very good match. And we're going to be seeing the Butcher and the Blade along with the Bunny versus the Natural Nightmares. So those are the only two matches they announced for next week's Dynamite. And then we saw a video from Darby Allin. Darby Allin ends up going up to a car, and he had the face of TNT written on it. Darby Allin ended up getting into the car, and he ended up seeing someone wearing a Cody mask. So Darby Allin ends up driving the car into the guy. And we see Darby Allin end up sitting up in the stands by himself. And so that was that. But pretty cool video from Darby Allin. And then we had the main event. Cody Rhodes, Billy, and Austin Gunn versus John Silver, 10, and Colt Cabana, the guy who feels so out of place in the Dark Order, in my opinion. And the Dark Order was out there. So, but this was a pretty decent match here. We had Cody end up starting off the match with John Silver. And we had Austin Gunn end up tagging in. He ended up rolling John Silver up. Did a drop kick. Billy Gunn ended up coming in. Colt Cabana then came in Billy Gunn ended up delivering a knee, which dropped Colt Cabana. Billy Gunn was sent into the corner, and Billy ended up catching Colt Cabana in midair. And at the end of the match, you had Cody, Billy, and Austin Gunn picking up the win. Austin ended up hitting the crossroads to Colt Cabana, and he ended up hitting a quick draw and hip toss into a neck breaker. And that was that. Picked up the win. So Cody, Billy, and Austin Gunn ended up winning the match. Post-match, we had the Dark Order was looking to take all three guys out. John Silver had a chair, and he was trying to ambush them from behind. Orange Cassidy then ran out. Orange Cassidy ended up delivering the orange punch to John Silver. So then after that, Cody got on the mic, delivered a good promo here. Ended up saying that Darby Allin is telling everyone that TNT doesn't want him as the champion. Cody then replied that that's fiction and that TNT would love it. Cody ended up saying that if the circumstances were different, he would love it too. He ended up saying that he was the one who brought Darby Allin in, and that the other EVPs were so unsure of Darby Allin. So Cody ended up saying that he had to wrestle him just to prove Darby's talent. Cody then ends up telling Darby Allin to stop lying, that he wants the title, and he wants to be the face of the company. Cody ended up saying that the only problem, you're not the ace. So Cody ended up holding up the TNT Championship, and he ended up looking at Darby Allin in the stands, and that was how Dynamite went off the air. So, but it was a decent match, decent main event between Cody, Billy, and Austin versus John Silver, Ten, and Colt Cabana. So, but overall, good Dynamite for this week. Good go-home show for Full Gear. Full Gear is going to be a good show tomorrow night. I'm really looking forward to it. Got a stacked card. Of course, take a look at the card right here. We have Hangman Adam Page versus Kenny Omega in the Eliminator Tournament final match. The winner ends up receiving a future AEW World Championship match. That's going to be a very good match between the both of them. Former partners. Of course, we have the TNT Championship, Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin. FTR versus the Young Bucks tag team match with the AEW World Tag Team Championship on the line. And, of course, if the Young Bucks lose, they will never challenge for the titles again. And, of course, Tully Blanchard is banned from ringside during this match. Which I hope this match is the main event. I really do. Because this is a dream match that everyone has been wanting to see. It's a match that, I wanted to see. And, all the fans. And it's going to deliver. I think, in my opinion, my prediction, this is going to be the match of the year. Without a doubt. It's going to be the match of the year. So, but praying that this is the main event of Full Gear. Of course, we're going to have Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston, I Quit match for the AEW World Championship. Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara in a Elite Deletion match. Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose for the Women's World Championship. Jericho versus MJF. And if MJF ends up winning the match, he is allowed to join the Inner Circle. So we're going to be seeing that. Orange Cassidy versus John Silver. And Serena Dev versus Allison Kay for the NWA World Women's Championship, which that match is going to take place on the pre-show. So there's your card, Full Gear. Stat card. And the show is going to deliver tomorrow night. Really is. So that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed the review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all tonight with the SmackDown review. So until then, see you all later tonight.